Pisces. Have you noticed that something feels different lately? Maybe people have become quieter, maybe certain doors closed without warning, or maybe you felt a strange, unfamiliar calm right before everything around you seemed uncertain. Many believe these moments aren't random. Some spiritual traditions describe them as the final stretch before a major shift, the last few steps before something changes. And if you're watching this on July 21st, this message may be arriving exactly when you need it most. Before we go further, a quick note. This video is intended for inspiration and entertainment based on astrology and spiritual traditions. It is not a prediction of guaranteed future events or professional advice. What you're about to hear is meant to help you reflect, not to tell you exactly what will happen. Because here's the truth, Pisces, you are standing at the edge of something. And whether you can feel it yet or not, part of you already knows. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why so many people are saying this month feels different, why the ground beneath you has felt unstable, and why, according to many spiritual teachings, that instability might actually be the universe's way of preparing you for something good. But I'm not going to tell you what that something is. Not yet. First, we need to talk about the test. In almost every spiritual tradition, there's a shared idea. Before something wonderful arrives, something difficult tends to show up first. Not as punishment, not as bad luck, but as preparation. Think about it like this. A seed doesn't become a tree the moment it's planted. First, it sits in darkness. It has to push through resistance. It has to survive being buried before it ever sees the sun. Many believe that's exactly where you are right now, Pisces. You've been pushing through something. Maybe you haven't said it out loud. Maybe you've smiled through it, kept working through it, kept showing up through it. But quietly underneath everything, you've been carrying weight. And here's what's interesting. Some spiritual traditions suggest that right before a major blessing arrives, life doesn't get easier. It actually asks more of you. It asks you to release old patterns, old relationships, old fears, old versions of yourself that no longer fit who you're becoming. This is sometimes called a threshold moment, a place where you're no longer who you used to be, but you haven't fully stepped into who you're becoming either. If that resonates with you, keep listening, because the next part might explain a lot about what you've been feeling. Let's start with something a lot of Pisces have been quietly noticing. You may have felt disconnected from people who once felt important to you. Maybe a friendship that used to feel effortless now feels distant. Maybe conversations that once flowed easily now feel forced, or maybe they just don't happen anymore. Some interpret this as coincidence. Life gets busy, people drift, but many spiritual traditions describe this differently. They suggest that certain relationships were only meant to walk with you for a season, not forever, just long enough to teach you something, comfort you through something, or prepare you for something else. Imagine a woman named Sarah. For years, she had a friend she talked to every single day. Then, slowly, without any argument, without any falling out, the conversations became shorter. The calls became less frequent, and one day she realized months had passed since they'd really talked. At first, it hurt. She wondered what she'd done wrong, but looking back, she began to see it differently. That friendship had carried her through a hard chapter of her life. It had been exactly what she needed at the time. And when that chapter ended, so did the need for that particular connection. If you've felt something similar, please don't rush to blame yourself. Many believe this isn't rejection, it's realignment. The universe making space for what's coming by gently clearing out what's already served its purpose. Maybe for you it wasn't a friend, maybe it was a family member who used to call every Sunday and now the phone stays quiet. Maybe it was a group chat that used to buzz all day and now sits untouched for weeks. Maybe it was someone you loved, someone you thought would be there forever, who simply isn't part of your daily life anymore. There's a particular kind of grief in that. It's not the sharp grief of a fight or a betrayal. It's the slow, quiet grief of watching something fade without ever really understanding why. And because there was no big goodbye, no closure, no final conversation, it can feel like it's still unfinished, like you're supposed to fix it, like you did something wrong. But consider this for a moment. What if nothing was wrong? What if you simply outgrew each other, the way two plants growing in different directions eventually stop sharing the same light? Some spiritual teachings describe our relationships as chapters rather than the whole book. Each person who enters your life is there to teach you something, comfort you through something, challenge you into becoming someone new. And when that lesson is complete, even if neither of you can name what it was, the connection naturally begins to loosen. This doesn't mean the relationship didn't matter. It means it mattered exactly as much as it was meant to. So if you've been carrying quiet guilt over a friendship that faded, or wondering what you did to deserve the silence, try setting that guilt down for a moment. You may not have done anything wrong at all. You may simply be exactly where you're supposed to be. But that isn't the most important sign. Something even more surprising often happens next. Sign 2: the delays. You may have also noticed something else. Unexpected delays, plans falling through, timelines shifting without explanation. Maybe a job offer stalled. Maybe a decision you were waiting on got pushed back again and again. Maybe something you were sure would happen by now still hasn't happened. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and it can make you question everything. But here's something worth considering. Some spiritual traditions suggest that delay isn't always denial. Sometimes it's protection. Picture a man named David. He'd applied for a promotion he was certain he deserved. Weeks passed, then months. No answer. He grew bitter watching co-workers move ahead while he stayed exactly where he was. Then, almost a year later, the company underwent massive layoffs. The department he almost got promoted into was eliminated completely. Looking back, David realized the delay he resented had actually shielded him. You may not see the full reason behind your own delays yet, but many believe that what feels like standing still now is actually preparation for something more stable later. Maybe for you, it's a house you didn't get, a relationship that didn't move forward the way you hoped, a financial breakthrough that keeps slipping just out of reach. And maybe you've started to wonder if you're doing something wrong, or if you're simply being punished for reasons you can't see. Here's a gentler way to think about it. Imagine you're driving on a long road trip and every red light seems to catch you at the worst possible moment. It's irritating. You just want to get where you're going. But you have no way of knowing that 2 miles ahead there was an accident that cleared only moments before you would have reached it. The red lights that frustrated you were never obstacles. They were timing. You can't see the whole road from where you're standing, Pisces. None of us can. That's the hard part about being human. We only get to see the mile in front of us, not the miles beyond it. So when a delay stretches on longer than you expected, when an answer takes longer to arrive than you hoped, try to hold a little grace for the process. Not because everything happens for a neat, tidy reason. Life is messier than that. But because many people, looking back on their own delays, later realized the waiting room they resented was exactly where they needed to be. Slowing down isn't always a setback, Pisces. Sometimes it's the universe asking you to breathe before the next chapter begins. And speaking of breathing, there's something else many Pisces have been experiencing lately, something quieter, something deeper. Sign 3, the rising intuition. Have you noticed your intuition growing stronger lately? Maybe you've had a feeling about something before it happened. Maybe you sensed a conversation coming before someone even brought it up. Maybe you've simply started trusting your gut more even when you couldn't explain why. As a water sign, Pisces is often described as naturally intuitive, but many believe that during certain periods, that intuition sharpens even further, almost like your inner compass is trying to get your attention. Think of a woman named Elena. She had a strange feeling one morning not to take her usual route to work. She couldn't explain it, it just felt wrong. So she took a different road. Later that day, she learned there had been a serious accident on her normal route, right around the time she would have been driving through. Was it coincidence? Maybe. Some would say so, but many spiritual traditions suggest that intuition like this isn't random. It's guidance, a quiet inner voice trying to protect you, guide you, or prepare you for what's ahead. Maybe your version of this isn't quite as dramatic. Maybe it's simply a feeling in your chest before you open a message, a hesitation before agreeing to something that seemed fine on the surface, a quiet pull toward a decision you can't fully justify with logic, but that you simply feel is right. As a water sign, you've carried this gift for a long time, even if you've spent years second guessing it. Many Pisces grow up being told they're too sensitive or overthinking things, and over time, that can teach you to quiet the very voice that was trying to protect you. But many spiritual traditions honor intuition as its own kind of intelligence, not less valid than logic, just older, quieter. Some describe it as the soul remembering things the mind hasn't learned yet. If you've been feeling unusually intuitive lately, some interpret this as your inner wisdom becoming louder, as if your soul knows something is shifting even before your mind fully understands it. Pay attention to those feelings, Pisces. They may be trying to tell you something, but there's a sign that follows intuition, one that many people notice but few take seriously enough. Sign 4. The numbers and coincidences. Have you been seeing repeating numbers lately? 1111, 222, 333, 444. Maybe you glance at a clock and it's always the same time. Maybe a number keeps appearing on receipts, license plates, or random pages. Some call this coincidence, others call it synchronicity, a term used to describe meaningful coincidences that seem too aligned to be random. Many spiritual traditions believe repeating numbers are gentle nudges, signs that you're on the right path, or reminders to stay aware, stay hopeful, and keep moving forward. Think of a man named Marcus. During one of the hardest years of his life, after losing his job and going through a painful breakup, he kept seeing the number 444 everywhere. On billboards, on phone screens, on receipts. At first, he brushed it off. But it kept happening again and again, almost like the universe was trying to get his attention. He began researching what 444 meant in spiritual traditions. Many describe it as a symbol of stability, protection, and reassurance that you're supported even when things feel uncertain. Whether or not you believe in that interpretation, something about it comforted him. It gave him a reason to keep going during a time when giving up felt easier. If you've been noticing patterns like this lately, some believe it's a gentle reminder, a sign that you're not walking through this alone, even when it feels that way. But not every sign feels comforting. Some feel painful. And this next one is one many people don't expect. Sign 5, the old wounds returning. This is one of the hardest signs to talk about, but it might be one of the most important. You may have noticed old emotional wounds resurfacing lately, memories you thought you'd healed from, feelings you thought you'd moved past, maybe even people from your past unexpectedly reappearing, whether in person or simply in your thoughts. It can feel confusing, even discouraging. You might wonder, why am I still thinking about this? Why does this still hurt? But many spiritual traditions offer a different perspective. They suggest that old wounds don't return to punish you. They return because you're finally strong enough to fully heal them. Think of a woman named Patricia. Years after a painful divorce, she believed she'd moved on completely. Then, out of nowhere, memories started resurfacing. Feelings she thought were long gone came rushing back. At first, she thought she was regressing, but through reflection, she began to see it differently. She hadn't fully processed that chapter of her life. She had simply buried it, and now, with more strength and more clarity than she had back then, she was finally able to face it, release it, and truly let it go. If old memories or old pain have been resurfacing for you, some interpret this as your soul giving you a final chance to heal, not to relive the pain, but to release it for good. Think about how healing actually works. It's rarely a straight line. It's more like waves coming and going, each one a little softer than the last, but never completely gone until you finally turn around and face what caused them. Some people spend years running from a memory, changing the subject, keeping busy, avoiding anything that might bring it back up. And for a while, that works, until it doesn't. Many spiritual teachings suggest that pain resurfaces when you're finally ready to hold it differently. Not because you're weak enough to be hurt by it again, but because you're strong enough to finally look at it without falling apart. If you've had someone from your past cross your mind recently, or a memory you thought was long buried has resurfaced, try not to see it as a step backward. See it instead as an invitation, a chance to say the things you never said, a chance to forgive even if the other person never asked for it, a chance to finally close a door you've been holding slightly open for years. You may be closer to closure than you realize, Pisces, but right after healing often comes something unexpected, something many people don't see coming. Sign 6. The opportunity after disappointment. Have you experienced a disappointment recently only to have a surprising opportunity appear shortly after? Maybe a plan fell apart and shortly after, something better showed up in its place. Maybe you didn't get something you wanted only to be offered something you didn't even know to ask for. This pattern is something many spiritual traditions describe as redirection. The idea that closed doors aren't always endings. Sometimes they're the universe steering you towards something more aligned with who you're becoming. Consider a man named James. He'd been rejected from a graduate program he'd dreamed about for years. He was devastated. He felt like his future had collapsed. Weeks later, almost by accident, he came across a completely different opportunity, one in a field he'd never considered. He took it hesitantly at first. Years later, he described it as the best decision he never planned to make. Looking back, the rejection that once felt devastating became the very thing that redirected him toward a life he now loves. Maybe your own version of this hasn't fully unfolded yet. Maybe you're still sitting in the disappointment part without any sign of the opportunity that's supposed to follow it. If that's where you are right now, this next thought is for you. Some spiritual teachings compare disappointment to fog. In the middle of it, you can't see more than a few feet ahead. Everything feels uncertain, maybe even a little frightening. But fog doesn't mean the road disappeared. It just means you can't see it yet. You keep driving slowly, carefully, trusting that the road is still there even though you can't see where it leads. Many people, looking back on their most painful disappointments, describe a strange pattern. The job that didn't work out led to the one that changed everything. The relationship that ended led to the one that finally felt right. The plan that fell apart led to a version of life they never would have chosen for themselves, but ended up being grateful for. This doesn't mean every disappointment leads somewhere better. Life doesn't come with guarantees like that. But it does mean that disappointment isn't always the end of the story. Sometimes it's simply the page before the turn. If you've experienced disappointment recently, try to stay open. Some believe that what looks like a closed door is often just the universe clearing a path for something you couldn't have found on your own. But there's one final sign, and many people say it's the one that changes everything. Sign 7, the unexplainable peace. This last sign is quiet, subtle, but many describe it as the most powerful one of all. You may feel an unusual sense of peace even though nothing around you has actually changed yet. Your circumstances might look the same, your bills, your uncertainty, your unanswered questions, but somewhere inside you there's a stillness that wasn't there before. A quiet knowing that somehow everything is going to be okay. Many spiritual traditions describe this feeling as a sign that you're finally aligning with something greater than your current circumstances. Not because your problems are solved, but because you've grown into someone capable of carrying them differently. Think of a woman named Rachel. She was in the middle of financial stress, career uncertainty, and family distance all at once. On paper, nothing had improved, but she said something shifted internally. A calm she couldn't fully explain settled over her, even in the middle of chaos. She later described that peace as the moment before everything changed. Not because life got easier right away, but because she stopped fighting against what she couldn't control and started trusting what she couldn't yet see. If you felt something similar lately, some interpret this as a quiet confirmation, a sign that you're closer than you think. Think about how strange that really is. Nothing outside of you has changed. The bills are still due, the questions are still unanswered, the uncertainty is still there, and yet somehow you feel okay. Not because you figured everything out, but because you've stopped needing to. That shift, subtle as it is, might be one of the most important signs of all, because it suggests that your peace is no longer dependent on your circumstances. It's coming from somewhere deeper, somewhere steadier, somewhere that outside events can't easily shake. Many spiritual traditions describe this as the beginning of real transformation. Not the moment your life changes, but the moment you change in a way that no longer needs your life to be perfect in order to feel whole. If you've felt this kind of peace recently, even briefly, even in the middle of chaos, hold on to it. Some believe it's one of the clearest signs that something good is forming, even if you can't see the shape of it yet. So let's bring all of this together, Pisces. Disconnection from people who no longer align with your path. Delays that may actually be protecting you. Intuition growing sharper by the day. Repeating numbers offering quiet reassurance. Old wounds resurfacing not to hurt you but to finally heal you. Unexpected opportunities emerging after disappointment, and a strange, steady peace beginning to settle in, even before anything visible has changed. Many spiritual traditions describe this combination as a final testing period, a stretch of time where life asks you to release what no longer fits, trust what you can't fully explain, and stay open to what hasn't arrived yet. It's not always comfortable, growth rarely is. But if you've experienced even a few of these signs recently, some believe it may mean you're closer to a meaningful shift than you realize. Not because the universe owes you anything, but because many believe that blessings aren't randomly handed out. They're recognized by those who've grown enough to receive them. Think about the moments in your own life when something good happened right after you almost gave up, right after you let go of control, right after you stopped forcing an outcome and simply allowed things to unfold. That pattern shows up again and again in people's lives, not as proof of anything guaranteed, but as a reminder that growth often comes right before breakthrough. So, what do you actually do with all of this, Pisces? You don't need to force anything. You don't need to chase clarity that isn't ready to arrive yet. Instead, many spiritual traditions suggest something simpler. Stay present, stay honest with yourself, and stay open even when things feel uncertain. If you're waiting on an answer that hasn't come yet, consider trusting the timing, even without understanding it. If you're grieving a relationship that faded, consider allowing yourself to release it without guilt. If old wounds have resurfaced, consider facing them gently instead of pushing them away again. And if you felt an unexplainable sense of peace, consider trusting it even if your circumstances haven't caught up yet. None of this means your challenges will disappear overnight. Life doesn't usually work that way. But many believe that the way you move through this season matters more than how quickly it ends. Your patience right now, your willingness to forgive even when it's hard, your courage to trust yourself again. These aren't small things, Pisces. Many spiritual traditions describe these exact qualities as the very things that prepare someone to recognize a blessing when it finally arrives. Because sometimes the blessing isn't a single dramatic moment. Sometimes it's simply becoming someone who can finally receive good things without fear, without doubt, and without waiting for it to fall apart. If today's message resonated with you, remember this. Sometimes the greatest blessings don't arrive after life becomes easy. Many believe they arrive after you've become strong enough to recognize them. And perhaps that journey has already begun. If this video brought you comfort today, take a slow breath before you go. Whatever you've been carrying, whatever you've been waiting for, you don't have to have it all figured out right now. Trust yourself a little more today than you did yesterday. Stay open to what's coming, even if you can't see it clearly yet. And whatever season you're walking through, Pisces, you are not walking through it alone.